Hi, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about spreadsheets, and what we're going to do is look at spreadsheets and organize some spreadsheets, and we're going to make our own calculator as well. Spreadsheets are an incredibly important tool. Everyone uses spreadsheets. Businesses, employees, if you work at the Gap or Target or something like that, you'll probably have to worry about a spreadsheet. We can put numbers into a spreadsheet, we can put words into a spreadsheet, we can put colors into a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are ways that we can organize data. They even used spreadsheets before computers were around, back in the 1600s, 1700s, 1400s. People were making the spreadsheets to record information and to keep it all organized. However, with computers, we can do a lot more with spreadsheets than people could when they just write them down on pencil and paper. So today's task is, first, we're going to learn how we can make spreadsheets do math for us, and we're actually going to make our own calculators so that whatever numbers we put into the spreadsheet, the spreadsheet will do the math and calculate that for us. And then at the very end, we're going to take a look at a spreadsheet full of Iowa schools and Iowa mascots. And we're going to try and determine which mascot is the most popular in the state of Iowa. And we'll use a spreadsheet to do that. So let's go ahead and get started with our lesson on spreadsheets. So step number one is going to be to get into Google Classroom and find and open your work over here. It'll be a spreadsheet that I've made for you. So I want you to go ahead, click and open it up. And it will bring you to a sheet that looks like this. As a reminder, with spreadsheets, we have rows at the top and, said that backwards. Columns at the top, rows on the side. And then these columns will have letters A through, and then we can make it actually go to whatever we want. This one goes to Z, but I could add more if I needed to. And then the rows usually go from 1, and if I scroll down, it actually goes over here to 1,000, but I could add more on the bottom. So I can make this go into infinity, really, if I wanted to. That'd be a really large spreadsheet, but if you absolutely had to, you could make the spreadsheet as big as you wanted. Every time I click one of these rectangles here, these rectangles are called a cell, and these cells have a name. The name is the column and the row, kind of like the game Battleship. So when you say B2 or something, this one right here is D11. So in D11, that's that coordinate there, and that's the name of that cell. Now what we're going to do to make a calculator today is we're going to first start by creating a header. A header row, usually row number 1, is going to say what kind of data this actually is. So I want actually for us to start here. We're going to skip over A1 right now. We're going to skip this one. We're going to come up to B1, and I want us to write the word add. Okay, because this column is one that for a calculator we'll be able to add numbers. Let's go over to the next one, C1. Now, I pushed the tab key on my keyboard. The tab key is next to Q. And if you push the tab key as well, you'll be able to go to the next cell pretty quickly. So we have add. Let's do subtract. I'm going to push tab again. Let's do multiply. And then let's do divide. Okay? All right. So starting in B, we've got add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Now, we can also sometimes put information into column A that says what kind of numbers or what kind of data we're going to have here. So I'm going to, hold on, let me blow this up just a little bit so you can see this better. Okay, so here we have this. So on this column, I'm going to write number, oops, that's number 1, okay? And this one will be number 2, like so. This means that in this row we'll have the first number, and in this row we'll have the second number. Seems pretty straightforward. And then in row number 4, let's go ahead and say answer. Okay, so we're going to answer it. That means this is where you're going to find the answer. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put in a number into B2, number 1. The first number we're going to add, let's add a number like 15, okay? And then let's go ahead and click on the next cell, B3, and let's call it 23. So we're going to add 15 plus 23. Now, we could maybe do that in our heads. 5 plus 3 is 8, 1 plus 2 is 3, so 38 is my answer. However, what if I were to change this number here? Or what if I were to change this number? Or what if I were to make this like a million and something? I want to write a formula into this cell that would that would add these two cells together no matter what. A formula is like an equation, and in a way, it's a lot like computer coding. We're going to code this cell to add these two cells together, even if you change what these cell values are. So here's how we do it. First, we're going to start by telling the cell that this is going to be an equation. And now we actually are going to start with the equal sign, like so. The equal sign says, hey, cell, we're about to write a formula into here, some computer code. Next, we want to say what we're going to do. So in this cell, what I want is to add this number, and then I want it to add the next number. So I have to also say add this, and then I'm going to have to say the equation sign that I need. Well, I'm going to use the shift and plus button to say that I'm going to add. The plus button is next to backspace. And then I'm going to click the other cell that I want to add to. So notice that this now says equals B2 plus B3. It says do an equation, this cell plus this cell. When I push enter, there's my answer. Now that's pretty cool. Like I said, it's helpful, but it's even more helpful if I start changing these numbers around. So let's go ahead and see if we can change 15 to another number. Let's make it harder, 58. When I push enter, notice that this cell changes right away. Well, let's add number 2. Let's make it a 3-digit number, 139. Boom. Now, no matter what numbers I'm putting in here, I can add and add and add and add and add. So let's see, I'm going to make this whatever plus whatever. Look at that. Just like that, I've got my answer within less than a second. I've made this calculator that will add all these numbers. But what about subtracting? Let's go over here. Now, when we subtract a number, let's start simple to begin with, 19. We also want this second number to be less than the first number. Otherwise, we're going to get a negative number. I'll talk more about negative numbers in a second. Let's make this, what is it, 19 minus 8. Okay. So how are we going to set up this cell to subtract these two? Well, first, we're going to start with our equal sign. We always start with the equal sign. Then we'll click the cell that we want to start with, take that cell. Then we'll pick our operation. What operation do we want? We want a minus or subtract. That symbol is next to the 0 key. Then we'll click the number that we want to subtract from. Finally, we'll push enter. And there we go. We have 11. Now we can make this number anything we want, 258. And we could make this number anything we want, 64. And we get our answer instantly, just like that. It's pretty cool. Now, what happens if you did make this number smaller than this number? Well, if I change this number to 500, 500 is more than 25. You're saying take 258 and take 500 away from it. What will we get here for an answer? Oh, it looks like we get a negative 242. So we actually go into the negative numbers if you subtract a larger number from a smaller number like that. So if you get that negative sign, that's what that means. Let's go over here and let's try multiplying. What if we had a multiplication number like 8 and we want to multiply it by 7? 7s and 8s are always hard multiplication numbers. So we're going to start the same way. We're going to choose our cell to start with. And in this case, it doesn't matter which cell we go with. We can start with cell D3 or cell D2. Now, the multiply sign is not an X like we normally write. Instead, it's going to be a star. And the star is actually found on the number 8 key. You're going to have to use the shift and 8 to get the star. That's because X's in computer language is an X and not a multiplying sign. So they use the star instead. D2 times this one equals, and there we go, 56. And now I can change it to be anything. 563 times 248. We're going to get large numbers here real quick. Oof, that's cool. Okay, let's go ahead and let's go to this last one called divide. Now, divide. Oops. Now let's go to this next one called divide. All right. Now let's come to this one called divide. So let's do the same thing. We're going to take 8 and we're going to divide it by 2. I know the answer is going to be 4, but that's just going to let me check real quick. We're going to choose the equal sign. We're going to choose this first one. And now what we need is the division sign. And the division sign is the slash that's found on the question mark key. So if you look down at the bottom right-hand corner of your keyboard, the slash that's on the same key as the question mark next to shift is going to be divide. We choose this one to say divide and enter. Now divide is going to be a little bit tricky because this divides evenly, which is great. But if I chose a larger number divided by a other weird number, I'm going to get something that looks like this. I'm going to get a big decimal, like so. And that decimal says, you know, like it's an uneven number. In fact, that one kind of goes on and on forever that way, which is kind of cool. Let me divide by 3. Okay, so in this number, we get this decimal down here. And it says that 3 does not go into 300 or 598 evenly. There is a remainder, and that remainder is 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, all and on and on and on and on. So as you divide different numbers, you'll probably see this remainder start to pop up. Okay. Now, one last thing I want us to do with this calculator before we move on. I want us to also, now adding 2 numbers is great. Let's go back to our add column right here. Adding 2 numbers is fine. I'm going to make these a little simpler. 13 plus 24. But I know that I can add more than one number. What if I want a long list of numbers to add? So what I want us to do is I want us to add more numbers to the add column. This does not work with subtract because we can only subtract 2 numbers. This kind of works with multiplying, but I don't really want to get into that right yet. And this does not work with divide, essentially. So we're not going to get into these 3 columns today. We're just going to work with this idea of adding more than one add number. So first, I've already got some data right here, and I don't want to erase this data yet. I'm going to click and drag from A4 to E4, these numbers here, and instead of erasing, I want to use my mouse, and if I put it right on the border there, it becomes a hand that will grab it if I click it. Do you see how it like grabs that and this little line shows up? That means I can drag it somewhere else, and the dotted line kind of shows me where I can drag it to. So I want to drag it down so that it goes down to A10, like this. The numbers stay the same, the equations stay the same, like so, but now what I can do is I can add more numbers here. So I could say number 3, number 4, number 5. Okay? Now, if I put in other numbers here, like so, I want this answer to add up all of these numbers. So we're going to change our formula here. We're going to click here, and I want us to erase it because we're going to do something else. In this time, what we're going to do here is we're going to start with our equal sign, and then we're going to write the word sum. A sum means that we're going to add all of these different things together. Then, after we write a sum, this says we're going to use a parentheses. Open parentheses is found on the 9 key, so we're going to use Shift and 9, and that gives me a parentheses, and it says add these numbers together. I'm going to get rid of this thing. So equals, find the sum of, and we're going to say a bunch of cells. Now to find the cells, I'm going to take my mouse, I'm going to click and drag all of the cells that I want to add. I want to add from this cell all the way down to this cell. Notice how this autofills and says, all right, B2 colon B6, and it means add all the cells from B2 to B6. Now I could use a close parentheses here, or I can just push enter and it will actually do it for me. See how it made that closed parentheses right there? And notice now that the number is 167. It is adding all of these cells, and I could change any one of these to be something else, and anytime I do anything here, it will add all of this together. So let's try and see if you can add those, make that calculator that way. And now once you're done, you've got something that will add up to 5 numbers. And here's a hint, you can make this more if you wanted to. You can subtract numbers, you can multiply numbers, and now you can divide numbers, all like that. Let's try to do one more thing here, just to make things a little bit more easy to read. I want us to highlight these cells in different colors. I'm going to click and drag like so. And when I click and drag and highlight these cells, I see a paint bucket up the top. And this paint bucket here will fill in some color like this. Oh, that's nice. Now I can see that this is my add column right here. I'm going to do the same thing with subtract. And I'm going to make it a light color. Remember that since you have a dark text, you want to have a light background so that you can easily read it. Let's just go ahead real quick and highlight these different things here. Okay. Now I've got my answer row, and I've got different things that I can add. Remember, we only subtract 2 numbers at a time. I only want us to multiply and divide 2 numbers at a time too, because I don't want to get into all that information. But this is how we can make a calculator. All right, let's do one more fun thing with our spreadsheet. Now down at the bottom you'll see a tab, and this tab is for mascots. And the mascots tab will bring us to a spreadsheet that looks like this. Now spreadsheets don't always have to be just numbers. They can also be letters and words like so. This is a way we can organize this kind of data. Here in column A, I'll see that the header says school, and this is every single school in the state of Iowa. Header B says mascot, and that means that this is that school's mascot, like Carlisle is the Wildcats. And then C is a conference. This means this is the group of schools that they belong to play against each other and decide conference champions, things like that. So if you were to scroll down a little bit, I think row 44 here actually shows Carlisle, and it shows that Carlisle Wildcats are in the Raccoon River Conference. I wonder how many other schools in our state are called Wildcats. Even if I just scroll down a little bit, I'll see that Central City, row 54 here, are the Wildcats from the Tri-Rivers. So let's see. What would be helpful is if I was able to sort all of this data by mascot and put all the mascots together along with their schools and conference. To do that, here's what I want you to do. Come up to the B column and click where it says B. Then we're going to find this little arrow thing right here. This arrow is going to give us a menu, and this menu is able to do lots of different things, but the one that we're going to find is this one called Sort Sheet, A through Z, Sort Sheet. When I click on Sort Sheet A through Z, that is going to take column B first, pair it up with A and C, and put everything in alphabetical order. Now I see that we've got all the Bearcats together and then the Bears together. There are 4 schools that have the Bears. There's only 1 Beavers in our state, the Wilton Beavers. We have 2 Big Reds. Ooh, we have the North Central Bison. Interesting. We have some Blue Devils here. Let's go down and let's try and find Wildcats. Here we go. Wildcat, down, 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 down to the W's. Where we at? Ooh, look! Wow, there's a lot of Wildcats. I think I count 13 Wildcats. Interesting. Look through this. What other ones do you see happen a lot? What other ones do you see are only one? Like there's only one Rough Rider, only one River King and River Queen. There's only one polar bears, only one polar bear. Interesting. Oh, there's a lot of panthers though. A lot of panthers. Interesting. Okay, so let's also do one more thing. Let's make a graph of data B. So if we take column B here and we want to put it into a big graph, here's what we can do with that. We're going to come over to our toolbar. So first highlight B. This is our data. Let's come to our toolbar. And this toolbar right here, it looks like there's a graph on it. If we click it, it says insert chart, and it'll actually make a chart of this data. You might have to give it a little bit of time because it's going to have to think, and then it makes a chart that looks like this. Now this is a pie chart, and this does okay, but it's kind of hard to read. I think there'd be a different kind of chart that would be helpful. Come over here to where it says pie chart, and let's try and find a bar graph like this. When I click on bar graph, that's a lot better. I can X out of this to see this a little bit better. Now I can see based on the lines. Yeah, this is way better. Let's see. Eagles. Ooh, look. It says there are 18 eagles. It says there are 8 Trojans, and there are 7 lions. So these are all the different schools and all of the different mascots that we have here. Anyone down here is just a 1. Interesting to kind of look through, and you can do this with other pieces of data too. So once you get this done, that's going to be a lot of work with spreadsheets for the day, and that's probably all we're going to do today. But you are more than free to kind of play around with this some more, to sort different things, to take a look at the different mascots that we have, or to go back to your calculator over here and to add and subtract and multiply and divide different numbers too. Okay, hope you learned something, and I will see you next week. Next week's lesson, we are going to talk about Thanksgiving.